Hello and welcome back, everyone, to the Brought to the Table podcast, a podcast where we have a guest come onto the show to help bring their unique perspectives and ideas to this table. My name is Luke Jones, your host, and today I am joined by a wonderful friend of mine. Also, technically, I guess used to be one of my students, Jules. How is that? How you would describe that?
I guess so, right? Like
Yeah,
you
exactly.
used to be the TA for one of my classes.
I know that was like 3 years ago.
Yeah,
A long
yeah.
time ago, Jules. Yes, Jules Borneo. Hello, friend. How are you doing today?
Hello, Luke. I am doing well. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
I know this has actually been an episode we've been trying to work out for a while. And we finally just got some time to do it because, believe it or not, folks, we're recording this near the end of November. And if you don't exist in the academia at all as a student or a teacher, this is when hell approaches, where everything from grading to finishing your homework is happening. So Jules has been busy.
Yep, very. We've been trying to plan this for like at least a month.
Yeah, it was like a month and a half or so. Because Jules actually has a very interesting topic. But before we get into that topic, Jules, do you want to introduce yourself at all and any extra things besides the fact that you used to be a student?
I mean, I'm still currently a student, right?
That's
I'm
true.
in my last couple semesters at IUPUI, so it's getting there. I'm getting close.
You're getting close.
I can
You
smell
taste
it.
the victory.
Yeah.
You taste it. You put it. We were making bean burrito jokes before we started the show. So you're tasting the freedom bean burrito right now. Is that what you're tasting?
I feel like maybe the tortilla.
Yeah, the tortilla. Okay.
I
What
haven't
does
gotten to
freedom
the good
taste like?
shit.
What's the taste of freedom?
It smells really good
It
and it
smells really
tastes really
good.
good. And my mouth is already watering. And I'm still hungry. Like I haven't really had a proper lunch, so I'm getting
That's
hungrier.
probably half of your problem.
Yeah.
But now speaking off the topic of bean burritos, Jules, what is the interesting idea or / perspective you are bringing to this podcast's table today?
So I posed this to you a while ago, but I have some really strong opinions about social media.
I love it.
Yeah, and in terms of social media, just how it's evolved over the years and what it looks like now, and honestly, why it's shit, and also why why companies like TikTok, apps like TikTok have come about. There was a couple more that emerged after TikTok, like Triller or something else. There's another one.
I thought you said Trello for a second. And I was like, what? You talking about Trello boards?
No,
What is this?
no. It was I forget what it was called, but it was another platform that TikTok influencers, whatever you call them, were going to move to after Trump said that he was going to ban TikTok. So there was a couple of things emerging from that. And I wanted to talk and kind of explore that those ideas with you, particularly kind of just shit out my opinion and then allow you to pick apart.
Jules is here for. Like I mentioned before we even started recording, we're just gonna eat this 4-layer burrito and just
really quick
all over social media today. Because I have some opinions about social media too, but I will get to those where I see fit in this show. So Jules, in this first layer of the bean burrito, where are we starting?
So I kind of want to start where how social media in my life has kind of evolved. So we have very distinct generations, right? There's and in each of those generations there has been parts of the internet that has evolved to target those specific audiences. So for example, Facebook was kind of made for everyone, but a lot of the older generations, we call them boomers, around here, and we're specifically took a liking to Facebook, right? And then you had other apps come along like Instagram and Twitter and Snapchat, and a lot of those were targeted toward millennials and Gen Z and everyone else in between, because I find myself kind of in between both of those types of generations. So, and I have very strong opinions. So I was kind of early on the boat for Snapchat specifically and Instagram. So I remember the old Instagram, like, you know what I mean?
I know. I was there too. I was
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, it was like kind of like the ending like of MySpace where Instagram started to like come out. I was not old enough to have a MySpace account yet, but I was old enough to have an Instagram account when Instagram started becoming more popular. So I actually do have like technically have 2 accounts on Instagram. One is like my super old like account I can't get into anymore, and then one's my current. But
so the old one's the one when you were super young, and that's all the stuff that you just want to keep locked away forever because you don't want the public to see.
I only
That
had
one,
it.
right?
Yeah. But there was only like 3 photos on there, and they were like kind of cringy pictures. So
Yeah, exactly. The
yeah.
cringe account. That's what it is.
Yeah. I specifically remember there was this one day I took a picture, like a selfie, like waiting for my mom to pick me up, and I had it on my Instagram. And now I will forever like resent the fact that I have that account and I can never go and delete it, but it's there. Please don't try and look for it. Yeah, it's I'm pretty sure it's private too. So
well, there you go. It forever will be lost in the space and time continuum of Instagram.
yeah, it will. It'll just sit there in their database, like in their servers,
Just taking up space on the server. They're like, we can't get these like 3 megabytes worth of space on our server.
It's there forever. It's tiny
it
little
paid its mortgage
speck
on the internet.
Yeah, exactly. You know what? I'm okay with doing that to Instagram though, because I think social media is so I have a lot of mixed feelings about it. It's a mixed bag, but it's fairly negative, which is really ironic considering how much time I actually do spend on Instagram.
That's yeah, it's funny because I you know, I've had a kind of a roller coaster with social media. So like for me, you know, like most of people my age, Facebook was the first thing.
Yeah.
And I actually jumped on Instagram way late in the game. And the only reason why I ever even got a Twitter was because my ex-girlfriend from high school will convince me that it was a good idea. So I got it. And I first thought Twitter was the dumbest thing in the world, but now Twitter has actually become my favorite place for social media. And I actually absolutely despise Facebook. I'm mixed on Instagram, but when it comes to Snapchat and TikTok, I just think they're dumb. I don't have a Snapchat. I don't have a TikTok. I no longer have a Facebook. And the thing is that, and we'll probably talk about this. I think a lot of it has to do with the way that you craft your social media. But I think because of a lot of other quote unquote societal norms, I think it almost forces you to have that negative connotation with social media, depending on who you are.
No, and I agree. So I do have a Snapchat. I do not have a TikTok. Why? Because I absolutely hate TikTok. But the reason I have a Snapchat is because I got it again kind of early on, but when it started to kind of take off a little bit. So that was kind of a way for me and like my friends in high school to like talk to each other and like send photos of like random stuff. Like we were like it was like not even like important things like, oh, I got a coffee today, or look at the pizza we have for lunch, you know, like that type of stuff, you know? So it was kind of just a quick way to like socialize with everyone without, you know, having to log onto Instagram and post a picture there. Cause I feel like Instagram's so much more permanent than Snapchat, and which is why a lot of people really liked that, because they could show snippets of their life and like their day-to-day life and mundane stuff without having to blast it online and then maybe go back later and delete it. But I have only kept it because for a lot of the people that I still come into contact with, that's a really good way to kind of just see what they're doing in their daily lives without me like directly having to text them and ask them like what they're doing, right? So and it's it feels like a lot less permanent than Instagram. And so that's kind of why I still have a Snapchat. I'm not super active on it. Just go in occasionally, like send photos to other people, like, quick stuff. But Instagram, however, like you said, I have very mixed feelings about. I think it's a wonderful platform for artists and creators to share their work and have kind of like that digital portfolio. And it's also become a place where a lot of people make connections in the sense of like maybe they're a part of a particular community and it's really niche. Or just, getting ideas for things. And I think it's a really great breeding ground for ideas and creativity. And I think kind of on the other side of that coin, you see a much uglier side of Instagram, which is kind of like, in my opinion, the influencer side.
Yeah, no, I know what you're talking about.
Because, and we've talked, and I feel like this is perpetuated a lot, and this is a very common discussion a lot of people have about social media, is that it's so damaging in terms of self-esteem, and it curates like this horrible sense of insecurity, which I myself am victim of, because people will only post good pictures of themselves. There's never a time where a big influencer or even just people and regular people in general will post like ugly photos of themselves unless it's, I don't know, to get cringe attention. Like, like those photos of people will post of them crying. I'm sorry, I hurt for you. Like, I feel you, but like, this ain't it,
So
Like,
I kind of want to jump in on that a little bit
yeah.
because I think you bring up a lot of good stuff with that. Because so with Instagram for me, I've had a weird road with Instagram from it like become like Instagram was kind of like I started Instagram really like at the tail end of high
Mhm.
school, going into college. So it was like that weird identity crisis phase of like, oh my gosh, I'm trying to figure out who I'm supposed to be, and then you're looking online, you're seeing all of your old high school friends like posting up all their big gatherings and stuff back when meeting people was still a thing.
Mhm.
Um, before 2020. And like you as a person, when you're trying to do your own thing, like you feel left out,
Mhm.
or even when they're posting up these like what you call like the good photos, not the ugly photos.
Right.
Like that thing too, where you're like, wow, I need to post stuff like that. And like as someone who does a lot of photography, I when I go onto Instagram or even on my Twitter, like I want to post my cool pictures that I take. And sometimes I'll take a candid selfie, but like when I take that selfie, I always want to try to look the best that I can because I have this weird stylish thing where I'm like, I just need to look cool. Like I don't have to look good. I just gotta look cool. But the thing is that like, I talk about this, we've talked about this, a few times on the previous episodes of the show, but like being human is really
Mhm.
important. And it's hard to be human when the entirety of that platform, whether it's the people that you follow that are social media influencers or possibly your friends, we all got this mindset around like you have to look your best or you got to feel your best when you post online. And I don't know why that's a thing. I mean, obviously, because there's this weird emotional attachment that we have with ourselves, where it's just like,
Mhm.
yeah, you gotta look good, or people aren't gonna care, you know. Um, and I hate that, but at the same time, it's just like, I would love to be super real on Instagram, like we are right now on this podcast. But obviously, podcast is a different format. It's just audio. You're not seeing Jules and my face. Although you folks see my face every time I do a video where I'm on the stream, but that's different still. I think the Instagram is just really enforcing this non-human side of things. And honestly, that's with a lot of different social media platforms as well.
Right.
Too. Like now I'm not on TikTok and I'm also not on Snapchat. But from what my understanding of at least the people that I know who use Snapchat, they kind of do the same thing of like, it's like, oh, like you talked about, like, oh, I got this coffee. But is it really, hey, I want to have this fun, cool moment with my coffee. I want to share with my friends. Are you just going to take an ugly photo with you in your coffee to share with your friends? Hell no. At least that's what I would think. I mean, I assume that's how you thought when you were doing that.
I wouldn't be the person.
You wouldn't be the person?
I wouldn't be the person. I post like shitty stuff all the time. It's like a shit post account for me.
Oh, really? Is
Like,
that what it is?
yeah,
Come
no,
on, Jules.
absolutely.
I expect more from you.
You're not gonna expect.
But even then, it's
perfection
like
from
what
me.
you like. Even with that being said, you talk about the shit posting, and what I think's interesting about that is like, you know, you talk about like cringe accounts and stuff.
Mhm.
Maybe that's like the gimmick, and that's the
Yeah,
hook. But that's
maybe.
still not being like we talk about being human. It's like, oh, my whole gimmick is like I'm just gonna post dumb things on my feed, and but is that really you being yourself at the
Right.
same time? You know, I
Mm.
don't know. We don't know.
Yeah. No, I like to try and keep things as natural as possible for me. Unless I am posting a selfie, then that's when it is. It's a weird push and pull like type thing, like for me at least, when it comes to like posting on any kind of social media platform. So like on Instagram, I certainly will post the best pictures that I have. But I do try to keep it as like organic as I can, so that like for the people that I am typically around, they can see a part of like the days or like the part of my day that they don't get to normally see. And I hope that's the message that kind of comes across in my when I post my story. Like last night, for example, I put just a video of me just quickly going through like the lines of my final project that I finished, and just captioning it like, I'm finally done with it. Because I feel like for some people, it's kind of a sense of you're not with me right now, but here is the snippet of my day or something that happened to me that I think you should know about. And for me, that's kind of what Snapchat has become. Because then you have Instagram, which is the whole other beast,
Yeah.
right? But not everyone, like you said, views those like social media platforms that way, because there are people who do just, whatever social media platform they're on, they're going to act the same. They have to put out the best photo, their best face or foot forward. So, and I get the sentiment a lot, but I would be the wrong person to ask about, like, oh, what's perfection like on Snapchat? And I'd be like, I don't know, Luke,
You don't know what
because I
perfection in
am not
Snapchat looks like.
perfection.
I'll tell you perfection. It's
No.
me. It's me in a 4-layer burrito. I'm joking. That's gonna be the running gag in this entire podcast. No,
That
I get you
beefy
because like,
4-layer burrito.
the burritos. Now I need burrito emotes in my chat. But I know for me coming into this whole content creator role on YouTube and stuff,
Mhm.
it's been interesting because it's like people look at you. Like people follow
Right.
me on Twitter, people follow me on Instagram that aren't people that I know in real life, and they're people that follow
Mhm.
me because of the content that I create. So they want to see, because they obviously think I'm cool. They want to see that stuff too. And it's kind of been this weird balance of like, of, you know, making sure that even like, we've been talking a lot about Instagram, but like even on
Mhm.
Twitter, it's like, all right, what am I saying on Twitter that is meaningful and, also something people care to engage with?
Or even
You
like
know?
funny. Like, is this funny?
That,
You know?
yeah, that too. Like
I
it's like
mean,
is something I'm saying funny? Is something what I'm saying relatable to a large portion of my
mm,
audience?
yeah.
Is it something that I want the audience to know about something in my life? I don't, And it's like I can't just sit there and be like, oh, I'm just gonna, I find cool gamer t-shirts all the time on Twitter. And it's just like, oh, I just want to show off this cool, stupid Persona shirt I found. And I'll be like, well, no one's caring about that because my audience cares about Disney villainous mostly. But still, I mean, that's the same point. Is just like, because then there's the part of it. It's like, oh, if I did post about that cool Persona shirt and people don't engage with it, it makes me feel like crap, because you're
Right.
just like, oh, it's like on Twitter, it's as simple as you find the post, you retweet it, you're done, but even with doing that, it's like you don't feel good when people don't engage with what you do. And it's like it's not even how, it's just like it's a whole extra tension and stress feeling of just like you have to constantly be engaged with that social media. And I hate it.
Right.
It
Right.
sucks. It's horrible.
Yeah, it's like if you went on a date and you looked as best as you could for your date and you were as funny as you could be for your date, and your date just looks at you and walks away.
Yeah, actually, yep. Yep.
Right?
Yep.
That's how I like see it in my head.
Oh no, essentially it's like every time you jump on social media, it's like you're going on first dates with every single human you see,
Yeah.
engage with, and all of a sudden they see you in real life or see the real side of you, they're like, nope.
Right. If it's
Out.
not something that they're interested in, like a particular part of you that they're interested in, then they're not interested.
Exactly. And it sucks too, because it's just like, especially like from my perspective, you want to have an audience that relates and loves the stuff that you want to talk about.
Mhm.
And that, and then when you don't have that audience, so when I can talk about all this goofy, nerdy stuff, it doesn't make you feel welcome. And it sucks because I mean, for me, for my perspective, like that's the stuff I want to talk about. I want to talk about technology. I want to talk about education. I want to talk about games, from tabletop to video games, and like all the stuff that's happening all around that stuff. And I'm lucky I have audiences and actually in all those spaces, which is quite weird to think about. And people care about what I have to say. And but I want to make sure that what I'm doing is meaningful and people are going to engage with that stuff. And whether it is liking it, retweeting it, commenting on it, um, it's important. And even like for me running this entire Disney Villainous Discord thing, it's just like when I have something to say, are people engaging with what I have to say? And that's something that's definitely been created ever since I started creating content. And even in Discord, which you can argue is the social media platform, maybe to some extent.
Mhm.
I wouldn't call it directly that. But it's still the same concept of like, hey, is what I'm saying something people want to engage with, or are they going to actually listen to what I have to say and respond and have a conversation around it? And I think it's just getting tougher because there's just these societal norms of like, you got to look your best. You got to say something funny. You got to, and even like if you're going even crazier, like if you're a business, the businesses are trying to make that stuff. So they're like, oh, I'm going to go engage with Coca-Cola because they made a funny meme. I'm going to go like Coca-Cola, screw all these other people. And then guess what? You're not, and I'm not calling Coke out, but although Pepsi's better than Coke, that might be a hot debate. That might be a hot debate topic.
The age-old debate.
Oh, the age-old debate. What's your take on that?
I don't have a preference.
Do you not drink soda?
I do, but I personally prefer 0-calorie Sprite.
Really?
Yes, because I think it tastes better than typical, like just normal Sprite. Because I drink soda for the pleasure of having carbonation and the taste. So I like my soda to feel kind of fresh in that sense. I don't know, like refreshing. But when I drink anything like Coke or Pepsi or whatever it might be, I don't have a preference. It kind of just whatever I can get my hands on, really, if I really want.
The real answer you should have given me was the only soda you should be drinking is Dr. Pepper. That's the answer you should have given me.
I am so sorry, Luke. You're gonna like
I'm so
flame me
offended.
you're gonna be so offended, but like that is
I'm
the
gonna
one.
make sure you don't graduate, Jules.
I'm not even taking any of your classes.
I'm joking. I'm screwing with you. But
that's the one soda actually, it's not even the one soda. I'm very particular.
Sprite's good though. I'll say this: you have to choose between Sierra Mist and Sprite. I always choose Sprite.
Sprite. Oh, the way. Sierra Mist is that.
Although I do got to say,
poor
Sierra Mist does have some good like graphics on their cans.
Yeah, they do.
That Sprites taste better, hands down.
Yeah.
Nothing beats a good Sprite.
Yeah.
Anyway, tangent one of the podcast.
Yeah. Throw in the BB like 4-layer burrito right now.
Yeah, back to the 4-layer burrito topic of discussion. But yeah, I just think I think people are just really kind of debating, like literally competing for your time on social media with all these different societal norms and stuff. And I hate that because the whole purpose really of social media, when you go kind of read into the history of even like why Facebook was created, was essentially Facebook was supposed to be a dating website. And
really?
Yeah. And the whole purpose of Facebook was essentially to connect people with each other. And like, and obviously in a romantic dating aspect of it, but still the whole purpose is people talk to people. Engage with people that you can't normally talk to face on a daily basis. And now social media has become so much more than that of just like, hey, look at me, look what I have to say, engage with me. And then other people kind of get left behind. And then it's just like it's giving people this weird feeling of, wow, I'm not good enough. And then this is where this conversation really kind of all started.
Right. And I agree with everything that you're saying, because and I didn't know that Facebook started off as a dating website.
Yes,
I honestly,
I forget there was a movie that actually was about the whole starting of Facebook when Zuckerberg was actually working on it when he was in school.
That's so interesting.
I forget the movie. I watched it and I also read some stuff on it. It was pretty crazy.
Because like for me, I am very traditional in the sense of like the idea of social media. I think that it's such a wonderful way for people to connect with each other and interact on a platform where they don't have to be next to each other. You know, you can make friends and connections from anywhere in the world. And I think that was probably the most beautiful thing about social media to me, and which is what I think of when in terms of like if I were to tell you the purpose of social media, that's kind of what I would say. But what I think it's become, as you have alluded to, is it's this horrible like piss contest of who's got the best photo or who's the funniest, who's got the best content right now to, you know, make viral, or you know, who's got consistently good like posts that are quality, and again that engagement, you know. And I think that's probably the part of why I hate what social media has become, is that it has not just it's branched out from being a place where people can connect and share ideas to you introduce business into it.
Business is probably like the biggest eater of it, because even when we're talking about business, like I made the joke of like Coke, and you can talk about soda companies or what have you. Really, I mean, like YouTube is a huge example of this, where YouTube essentially has taken up this social media space where, guess what? You are basically competing for your view and your time based off the content that you are creating to engage with people.
Right. And then like, there's monetization.
One person. It's not necessarily like a whole corporation of group of people. It's one person on Twitter that's saying like, hey, look at my YouTube content. Go join my Twitch stream. Find my OnlyFans. When we get to the bottom dollar of that. But it's all true. I mean, and that's what's crazy. And that's what I think is super crazy about it, is that like these businesses are now being ran by one person. And I think that's insane. You know, especially in our day and age of like, you know, we have these people that are doing businesses outside in their apartments, and they're making, you know, 3-figure salaries just by making dumb videos for the internet. But then they're like, hey, guess what? I look cool. I'm doing cool things. Here's my video. Watch it, damn it, or you will be left out. You know, and I felt that way, and it definitely does work. I hate it.
Right. And I think that's such an important point, is that social media has also kind of excluded, it has created the space of like both inclusion and exclusion at the same time. It's this weird like mix of like here are the spaces that I do feel included and like heard in, and then there's also this like horrible side where it's like, you know, how people begin to idolize like influencers, for example.
Right.
And when like, you know, when that started to happen, and I think it's just continued to perpetuate this idea of perfection, and you know, there shouldn't ever be like anything ever out of place in your photos, and then kind of spiraling into this horrible mess of creating it and kind of implanting like seeds of insecurity into young
Yes.
people, and such horrible self-esteem issues. Like people have found support on these like on these social media platforms, in terms of, you know, dealing with mental health, and maybe the LGBTQ plus community. But at the same time, you have this like within the community this shadow of, hey, you need to be perfect, and if you don't get engagement, you suck. Like, and I think that's probably one of the things that bothers me the most. No, hands down, what bothers me the most about social media is that like overarching, you know, shadow of a doubt in your every day. Like if you're just like scrolling through Instagram or Twitter, and if you're not getting any engagement, then you don't matter.
Yeah,
And
I can really relate with some of what you were talking about because believe it or not, Jules, I don't talk about this publicly very much, but did you know I used to have body image issues several years ago?
I think we briefly talked about
We might
it.
have talked about this.
Yeah.
Now, for all of those of you who have seen me on stream, I am a stick. I've always been a stick. I do not have muscle mass. As the running joke in my family goes, I have missed arm day for the entirety of my life. Shout outs to you, father. Anyway, but you know, that's one of the things, you know, when you see all these dudes on social media just showing off, like, look at my pics, bro.
Yeah.
And I don't look like that. And I remember one of my first big engagements on Instagram was sophomore year. This is when I started figuring out some of my love for photography. I took my old iPhone 5 and I propped it up on my cabinet at my school apartment. And what I did was I was in my black workout shorts,
Mhm.
and I just took my shirt off and I did like the whole like for those of you who know like Street Fighter, I did like the whole Akuma Raging Demon pose. I'll try to
Oh
find a
my
picture of that,
gosh.
maybe put that on there. And I went back and edited it, made it all black and white and looked kind of really stylistic and stuff like that. And it got a lot of engagement because it was kind of like my way of saying like, hey, I really actually enjoy the way I look. You can't tell me otherwise. I think I look good. And if you tell me, and if you try to, then guess what? Piss off. Um, and that did it. And that honestly helped spark a lot of, you know, fuel in my fire. But I mean, it took a lot to get to do that. I mean, that took some courage. And it's kind of, you know, one of the things is like, if you, those of you folks who follow me on social media, I do a lot of like self portrait stuff. And like a lot of that has to do with like me still viewing myself in a good light, you know, like I'm still a stick, you know, I cannot have muscle mass to save my life, even if I tried. And part of that, me taking the self photography is like my way of saying, hey, I still look good. I know I do. You know, and I'm not trying to take these super sexy ass photos or whatever, but it's like my way of saying like, hey, I enjoy the way I look. You should too. Um, you know, and I think that's important, but I think finding the avenues to make sure like your little thing that you're insecure about is so difficult because I was lucky enough when I posted that picture, a lot of people liked it. And I don't know, maybe it's because they thought I looked good too. Who the hell knows? But at the same time, if you were to post something like that and you didn't get the engagement you were looking for, how much worse is that going to make you feel? You know, when you finally got the courage to do that, it's just like, and you have no one sitting there watching you.
Mhm.
It could be awful.
Yeah. No, and it does so much damage to your self-esteem and like, you know, self-image, right? And
Right. No, I agree.
and I think it was bad before TikTok came onto the scene.
Oh, absolutely.
And because you had the rise of Instagram influencers, right? And people just idolized these human beings. Very similarly, how did they idolize celebrities? But the fact that these were typically normal people who suddenly shot to fame over, I don't know, modeling things or like certain content they were creating, whatever it might be. And it worsened the rift that social media has created in people's minds about their own like self perceptions and honestly their self worth. As if
Yeah.
your worth is determined by how many likes you get or comments you get on a post. And now that TikTok's come onto the scene, and I have a good list of reasons why I do not like TikTok.
Oh man, she's getting the list. Getting the list now.
No, but the primarily the first thing, like really the most major thing, is the fact that it boosted, like absolutely boosted people's like body image issues, their self-image issues, insecurities, because you have people coming onto the platform who are attractive, skinny, or fit, and usually pretty well off. And I think the reason why I was so against it in the beginning, before the security stuff came out, obviously, about it. The reason I was so against even downloading it, I still have not downloaded it. I have never downloaded TikTok. I don't have a TikTok account.
Praise be.
Because again, I hate TikTok. And and honestly, I've debated like deleting other social media as well. But in this day and age, you have to have some kind of social media presence, or
Yeah.
companies will be. That's like a red flag for companies nowadays if you don't have a social media presence.
Which is, I think, is crazy, but we'll get to
Yeah,
that. There is such
we'll get to
things I have
that.
to say about that.
Four-layer burrito here.
Yeah, 4-layer burrito. We might get a 5-layer depending on how many.
Yeah.
Um,
But it's beefy. It's
yeah,
beefy.
it's a beefy burrito.
It's very
One thing I want to ask about the TikTok thing is, so you talked about kind of the negative side of stuff, and what first thing is that I've actually seen a lot of, I scroll through like because a lot of the people I follow on Instagram, they like that stuff links into like, oh, the related things feed. So like I go look down there and I end up seeing people like repost TikToks on there. So I
Yeah.
essentially get TikTok through Instagram, which I absolutely
Yeah.
despise.
Yeah,
Um,
same.
yeah, but then it's like, I know people do use TikTok. You talked about like in the negative ways of like, oh, you gotta be skinny and fit and well off and all that crap. But I've seen people do it to counteract that as well. In terms of like the body issues and maybe some other physical things. Maybe you have a particular physical handicap or something like that, and they want to show off that they still rock, which they all do. Do you think that TikTok can be used for some good, or do you think there's just so much negative surrounding it, or like the type of content it creates, it still gives you like a hard feeling about it? Because I could see it going both ways, and granted, I'm not really like engaged with that whole system, but obviously, it's really affected your view on it. So I just kind of want to see what your thoughts are on that particular thing.
Yeah. So, like I said, about Instagram in particular, there's this kind of duality that these social media platforms have. There's this really positive side that fosters creativity and fosters community, and connections. Is the most important thing, is connections. And that's why a lot of people have argued, TikTok is great because they've met so many people that they never thought they would ever meet in their normal lives, right? But the major underlying issue, again, with any kind of social media platform is this horrible perpetuation of this perfect image that you consistently have to have. And while there is not, and I'm not saying the people who post on Instagram are always posting like perfect stuff either, because there are people who are more, I guess you could say, like authentic or genuine about the photos they post. But you know, that also occurs the same for TikTok. There are people who use TikTok to educate others. But then there's also, you know, again, that duality of here's the negative sides where people might spread misinformation or might start stuff with other people on the internet, and it'll, you know, spiral into a controversy or something. But and it goes back to this core concept that we talked a lot about in my mentoring courses that I've taken. Just so that people in the audience know, I have served on OTEAM for 3 years at IEPY, and OTEAM is essentially orientation and transition services for incoming students, whether that's like freshmen or adult students or transfer students, stuff like that.
I was one of those at one point.
Yes, you were.
I was popular.
Oh, I can see that. And each mentor is required to take a mentoring class component along with, you know, their cohort of students that they mentor. And I reached the 3rd year, and a lot of the core concepts that we talk about in terms of leadership and awareness was intention versus impact.
Yes.
And that is, I think, a huge thing that people need to understand is that, well, people don't inherently want to do bad things or say bad things or post bad things. That is not the impact that what they intend to do is not the impact or the thing that happens, right? So the impact that they have on whatever they post or say, or whatever that might be, whatever engagement or interaction they have with people online, their intention does not matter. It is the impact that whatever they posted or said is. And that is the only thing that matters to people, right? Because your intentions can be good and they can be positive, but they can rub people the wrong way, or they can offend someone in a way that you didn't expect. But again, your intention doesn't matter. It's the impact that it made. And that is something, an issue that in social media still has not been able to address properly.
I can see where you're getting at with this.
Yes, which is why I am so abhorrently against TikTok, because we do not need more services that perpetuate this issue. And
I totally get it. You know, taking up this, you know, obviously I'm a teacher. Everyone knows that at this point on the show. And I, you know, from a teaching standpoint, I have to constantly watch what I say, not just from a back end standpoint of there's some things in my contract that are like, don't talk about politics in this particular way or blah, 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 which when you're listening to this podcast, you're going to hear my opinions and you may not like them. Well, I'm sorry. I'm not teaching. But even then, like, even with this platform that I now have where people follow me, it's like, I do have to watch what I say, and I also have to realize what the things that I say matter. You know, I'm bringing this up because this is actually kind of topical. You know, my parents, believe it or not, been listening to the podcast, which is a good and a bad thing at the same time. And my mom had commented about when I did the show with Miranda, which is a great episode, by the way. I love the people. I love that episode. Shout out to Miranda. She did a fantastic job. I made a very big comment about wear a fucking mask. And guess what, people? Wear a fucking mask. I will say that again. And guess what? You may or may not like that opinion, but it's the way, the impact and the intent of that, what I mean by that. It's not just of me saying that. It's also like, hey, Why should you do that? Well, the reason for it is you should try to protect your family and your loved ones and the people around you, so that way we can try to get back to some type of societal norm. But the way that I might have said that, it came off a little harsh. But at the same time, that was up to me to kind of decide how I wanted that to come across to the listeners. And maybe I didn't do a good job at that, because obviously my intent was, hey, wear this so that way we could try to get back to normal and try to protect the people you care about. But the impact it might have had been like, wow, Luke was kind of being a little aggressive. Yeah, and but that's the thing is, like, even like on Discord, obviously, or text at any time, sometimes you say an emotion or a feeling, and because it's just words, it doesn't have the full extent of what you're trying, the impact or the intent that it was trying to get across, and sometimes people take that wrong. And that's the thing, and I always tell people, it's like, that's what you have to really think about, is whatever you say doesn't just impact the people that you're talking to, it can impact a large number of people in ways you didn't even know. But you have to be cognizant of that, because if you aren't, then you don't realize that the action that you continuously do in that particular way can affect people. And like, in the example I brought up about wearing the mask thing, it's just like, yeah, I probably came off a little aggressive with that, and it might have upset a few people, regardless of what side of the mask debate you're on. But at the same time, the way I have to remember, like, hey, what impact is that statement going to have on people? Is it going to be good? Is it going to be bad? What was my intent with that? And that's with any social media, in general, is like, you got to think about that, because it's not just the people you're trying to connect with your platform. It's also anyone outside of there as well. And also the different perspectives. Obviously the whole show is based off around bringing different perspectives to the table. Which is, I'm glad you're bringing this topic of discussion to the table, Jules. People are going to have different life, ways that they lived, and whatever you say might be different based off of how they went through. And as long as you're sitting there and willing to listen to why they might be upset about what you said, you have done more than enough. Because you're trying to understand where they're coming from, and then you can learn, and then you maybe do better. That's what I'm trying to do. So I'm trying to explain myself about, wearing a mask. You should. But
you should.
Yeah, you should. I'm not trying to sit here. Everyone listen to the show right now. If you don't wear a mask, I'm going to come to your house and give you, I don't know, a birthday present. And the birthday present is going to be a 5-layer burrito made in my own fecal matter. Anyway, that's besides the point. But you get the idea.
He's coming for you with his shitty burrito.
Yeah, I know. Exactly.
You don't wear a mask.
Yeah, don't wear a mask. You're going to get a 5-layer burrito filled with your shit.
You're like reverse Santa.
Oh, God. It's just like we're talking normal life, right? Right, Jules?
Right. No, and actually, no, I think this is pretty much how our conversations typically go.
Yeah, this is pretty much how it goes. Probably a lot more casual than what we're having right now, but still the same level of nonsense and stupidity. More from my mouth, for being honest. But the company I keep, you never know.
Yeah, never know. I'm trying to put on the best face forward for your audience with my
I appreciate that.
With my very strong
podcast house with respect. I always tell people, like, if you come on any of my content, I'm the only person that can set my content on fire. If you try to set my content on fire, well, that's bad. Don't do that.
I'll set you on fire.
No, exactly. Yeah. I'm gonna give you a burritos full of poop. Jules, this is gonna set you on fire. It all works. We make a good team. But anyway, tangent 2 aside.
Is it really tangent 2?
I don't know. I mean, we got on the topic of burritos again, so
maybe 3, but we're back to burritos.
Maybe possibly 4 or 5, maybe 6.
Who knows?
Okay. But no, I think you bring up a really good point about the impact thing, and I like to bring in my own stories too to kind of help bring it home too, especially since it's actually relatable, because I had to do with the podcast.
Right. And I think that's such an excellent comparison that you made, which is such a real example of intention versus impact in our daily lives. So you might say something that to you it has a very specific meaning and connotation, but for other people, you know, that might come off completely differently. And like you said, you know, your intention was to make it known that, you know, you should wear masks in order to protect the people around you and to be considerate of your fellow Americans. And but, you know, maybe it didn't have that impact and maybe it didn't quite hit the mark that you wanted it to, but it's still, you know, again, it's not about the intention at that point. It's, you know, the impact that it made on the people listening or the people viewing your content. And that's in reality where a lot of things just kind of lie in terms of social media, right?
Yeah.
And so, you know, these people who are on Instagram, who are on TikTok, who are attractive and maybe are skinny or fit and they're well off or whatever that might be, their intent might not be to rub it in other people's faces or to show off, but the impact that it has on the people viewing their content is what's important, and which is why I am so against, you know, any kind of like new social media platform trying to come onto the scene right now, mostly because we're at a time where we're finally having a conversation about mental health and, you know, talking and being vulnerable, and opening up about these issues that everyone has, right? But could never really talk about because it was maybe taboo or just, it was just something that people didn't bring to the, you know, to the conversation. I didn't want to say bring to the table.
No, you plug my show on my own show, Jules.
Okay. But it certainly, again, is that whole issue of just, here are some conversations we're finally having as people and being vulnerable with each other and trying to understand and be empathetic. But then you have something blasting onto the scene with incredible popularity among young, impressionable adults or teens. I don't want to just say kids, but yeah, there's a lot of kids.
You know, or you have people like me who are an adult but also a child. So
I don't know.
you got my audience too.
You're an adult child.
I'm an adult child, adult, whatever you want to call it. I pay taxes. I pay rent. I pay insurance. But I like toys.
Oh, but who doesn't? Honestly, if you're weird if you don't, because man, I love Legos. But anyway.
Exactly. Anyway. Tangent 6.
Somewhere around there. But again, it's just that I also hate things that came along with TikTok. The reason why, you know, it blew up the way it did in terms of, you know, this might be a national security risk, and people were not understanding what the federal government by that. And I think it fosters this kind of sense of ignorance that, you know, okay, it's almost like monkey brain. Like they want to take away my like, say like a scientist gives you like I don't know, a spike for whatever reason, just a giant spike, and you think it's cool, you think it's neat, and you grow to really like this spike and be used to seeing this spike. And then suddenly the scientist is like, oh no, like this could hurt people, or be a threat to, like, for whatever reason, like our security. And they try to take away your spike or limit, you know, your spike. And the reason why I'm using a spike for an analogy, I know it's probably not the best, but like what I'm trying to make a point. Haha. Anyway.
I was going to say, I was going to make a newspaper reference. I don't even think you know what that's from. Anyway, continue.
This had a point.
It was putty.
But because I know how much you love.
That point you made was quite sharp.
Yeah. Oh, very.
Very,
the observant you made was very sharp as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, and the scientists are trying to take that spike away from you, and or at least limit your use of that spike, and you're being so stubborn about allowing them to explain why they're taking the spike away and or limiting your access to the spike. And that was probably one of the things that I just could not wrap my head around. I was just like, the amount of ignorance is like, wow. Like, it's mind-blowing that you would not consider the security of others because you like watching cat videos that you could find on YouTube. Okay. So,
Funny.
so it's just it or you can't like they're taking away my access to TikTok because I can't watch this teenage girl dance. Like, what?
Oh God, no!
Like,
no, God, no, Jules, no!
I'm so absolutely shocked and stunned at the audacity of people. Like, listen, your friends are not going to go away. These people aren't going to disappear because they ban TikTok. Like,
They're still going to exist.
Though that's passed. That's an issue that has passed. The idea, again, it's that whole intention versus impact, right? We're going right back to it. We're tying it in.
Yep, exactly.
The intent for the government was to keep people safe. Because
the impact.
But the impact it had was people read it because people will interpret things in the way that makes sense to them or the way they want to believe, right? Everyone's no one is exempt from that bias. But it's your choice whether you want to educate yourself on, okay, why is this happening? Or what can we do to, I don't know, make it so that I don't lose these connections with the people that I've made. And TikTok is not the only social media platform that has tried something like this. It won't be it's not the first, and it won't be the last. But the fact of the matter is that it came onto the scene, exploded in popularity, and continued to deepen that horrible underlying nasty truth and side of social media and the internet, frankly. And and I hate and I hate such a strong word, but I do just hate how this has kind of almost stumped, I guess would be the word I would use, or kind of just paused the conversation about these issues in social media. And people have kind of chosen to sweep it under the rug once again.
I know where you're coming from on this because all of your thoughts about TikTok are the same way I feel about Facebook now.
Right.
Like the whole reason I had a Facebook for forever, and what it kind of ended up being was, at least during my time, I got off of Facebook in early 2018, and I had it since 2009, so it was a long time, and almost 10 years. That was weird to think about. And the main reason is that, midway through that time on Facebook, I realized that it was kind of almost like a giant popularity contest of like, who do you have the most friends with and blah, blah, blah. So I did a giant purge of my friends on Facebook. I remember I went from like 350 something friends to about like 90. It was a big chunk of people I just like no longer talk to, or I was like, why was I friends with you to begin with? And then like even in that smaller group of friends, I realized it was still kind of this giant like engage with me fest. Look at me.
Yeah.
And I hate that. Like, to me, it's why I actually really dig Discord, is because with Discord, the community that like, or even like the people I talk to on Discord that are like my friends, those are people I talk to on a semi, if not daily basis. And I want to engage and talk with those people about meaningful conversation or things that we enjoy to talk about. And that's what I wanted on Facebook, and I just never got that. And I just think that Facebook's way that they approach that style is just the way that they, the tools that they've used to create that environment aren't just there to do that. And Discord ended up being that new platform for me where I met so many new people, but like they're now people I talk with on, like I said, a daily or semi-daily basis. And that's just so much more meaningful. And Facebook just never gave me that experience. So I got rid of it because it was just like everything that people are doing is just, they have intent, but the impact that they're making on other people's lives, like myself, because like to me, I want to know what people are doing. I'm interested in seeing where person that I care about is at in their life. And the thing is that if they're posting crappy things and stuff that I don't care about, that, and also this comes with just age too, like when you're my age, you're 26 years old and you're trying to, be an adult, a real ass adult. You don't want people posting like they post in high school. Like, no
Right.
offense. I am not in the mood for that crap. I'm not. And it's dumb. I hate it. So that's why I got off of Facebook. And I feel like the same thing is kind of happening with TikTok right now. Not to probably maybe the same extreme as the way I feel, but maybe the way you feel. But it's still kind of the same dislike
Yeah.
that I'm not a fan of.
No, and I think you have an extremely valid point there. For the people that do value those relationships and those connections, I agree that Discord has rightfully gained popularity because they might be people behind a screen, but these are meaningful connections that you're making with others in a community where people are interested in or passionate about, and you're able to connect by an exchange of words rather than here's what I'm doing now, or here's where I'm at, and look how happy I am, and whatever it is.
Exactly.
Right?
No,
Or look how
like,
I'm living my best life. Yeah,
yeah,
no, it's
exactly. It's like the difference between Discord and Facebook is like on Discord, like just to, comparison for everybody, like in our Disney Villainous community Discord, it's like when someone's asking like a rules question, they're being genuine, being like, hey, I don't understand something. Can someone help me out? Compared to, oh, look at me on Facebook. Here's this really fake ass picture of myself, really super unhappy with this person that I'm with. We're married and have 3 kids now. I'm locked in. And I'm like, oh God. Now that's like a horrible, like, a super extreme example, but like at the same time, like, but that's like the stuff that you see, like you're having someone asking a question to learn more about knowledge and understand something and engage with the community is a lot better than someone being like, hey, I'm not happy, but I'm going to try to show people that I am,
Right.
It's very obvious.
And I also think that Discord, one thing that Discord does really well is that you have people part of communities or engaging with others in some way, whether like you're in the you're in the Twitch streamer community
I
now.
am. Well, Discord, yeah.
So, and again, it's the same thing where you're creating these like meaningful relationships and connections with the people you're engaging with. And
Yes.
it's not a matter of here's, a really good picture of me or here's what I'm doing. It's more an exchange of again meaningful conversation and content across like communities or just topics in general. And I think that's what social media really lacks, is that almost like pure form of just human interaction.
Right. I agree.
Across across the internet. And again, while they are 2 different platforms and there are different target audiences, the intention and impact is still there, right? So And that's the one thing that I just wish social media platforms would. I don't necessarily know about regulating, but just making it more aware. I know there was in the UK there was this kind of push uh to enact a law where any edited photos had to blatantly have a tag that said that the photo was edited. Um and I thought that was a really great idea. And we need to normalize that yes, people will edit their photos and they will continue to do so. But you don't have to be subject to thinking that person is perfect when they're not. And, I think a lot of people have tried to kind of convey that message on social media in general, but or at least go against the grain and kind of combat that with more genuine content, quote unquote.
Right.
But it doesn't solve the problem. It just kind of puts a band-aid on a broken bone.
Yeah, like that's how I feel about Twitter because out of all the social media platforms, Twitter is my absolute favorite because I feel what's nice about Twitter is that unlike Facebook, unless you set your account to private, which most people on Twitter don't do that. Because if you do, then there's definitely something you're just trying to hide. It's very open platform. Like you can follow somebody, but they don't have to follow you back. And people can follow you, but you don't have to follow them back. And it allows you to kind of curate this environment of things that you want to read and people you want to engage with, which is absolutely great. Because I will tell you up front, especially for me being in this position of being a teacher as well as a content creator, it makes it really easy for me to engage with those environments without too much curation of dealing with idiots
Mhm.
at the smallest level. But the only catch with all of that, and we've learned this through the political sphere, which I won't try to get too much into, is that when you surround yourself on social media with one environment, you might think it's big, but in reality, your environment is still just this one small slice of the world. I don't know how many people I follow on Twitter. I'm actually gonna look up really fast. I'm curious. And you got to remember, and not all of these are actual people. So I'm following 627 people, which I definitely probably need to cut down because I definitely know not all those people are active. And um, that's only 600 people in the entirety of the entire globe. And you got to think about that. Like because all those people are going to have very similar viewpoints that I do. And that means that I'm not going to get the outside perspectives and understandings of people outside my own personal Twitter sphere, which is kind of important to, because we sit here and talk about on social media about how could you vote for such and such person. And because, your entire community is just like, yeah, this is bad. And then you go look and you're like, wow, there's a whole different world. And I mean, I'm bringing up politics because it kind of helps, put it a little bit in perspective based off of current events in 2020. But like that could be with anything else too. Like most of the people I follow are in video games journalism, tabletop content creators and tabletop companies and video game companies, a lot of different educators and education company stuff, even toy stuff, like different toy companies and things like that. But that's saying like I don't obviously follow car production companies or
Mhm.
like I'm using really boring broad terms like furniture or clothing stores, stuff like that. But like that's the thing is like I don't know anything in those spheres. And that's the only problem even with social media is that even if you want to try to broaden yourself as much as possible to make that broad impact, you're still only secluding yourself to a small, group of people. And
Right.
600 people, it sounds like a lot of people, but on the grand scope of things, it's incredibly small.
Mhm. Right. And I think there's something to be said about how limiting social media can also be, um, in terms of not only just, your expanding your perceptions and your understanding of other spheres as if that's what we want to call it.
That's what I'm calling it. The sphere.
Yeah. And it's so frustrating, I think, for me at least, to kind of log in to Instagram or even Twitter. I have a Twitter account, but I very rarely use it, to be fair. And it's just frustrating sometimes to see that there are so many people out there who will limit themselves based off of just what they see on social media. And something you said about how I think social media has kind of created a separate problem, where people are no longer going out of their way to obtain information from different places, but rather just one space and one scope. And which is also why I think our country is so divided as it is in terms of...
Well, yeah, because you're only getting I mean, like I said, I'm not saying I'm on the right side or the wrong side, although I do feel like I'm in the morally upright position in my opinions. But that you're absolutely right, because when you're only getting your news information from one area, regardless of whatever side of the sphere you're on, you aren't listening to the other side. You don't know what they're coming from. And even if you're like saying, well, that their opinion's dumb, well, have you even tried to listen to their opinion? Like, you can sit there and say, that I don't believe in that, but at the same time, it's just like, what is making them come up with that opinion? Let's have this conversation, you know? And, and like I said, not try to get too political, but, it doesn't matter what side of the sphere you're on. It's just all about listening. And the thing is, if you're not opening up your sphere to listen, you're not gonna be able to have conversations with people. You're closing off yourself to a large portion of the world, and that's bad.
Right. And just kind of like, again, that topic, just the idea of just limiting yourself to a particular idea. And some people feel safe that way, and I get that. But at the same time, you cannot argue or have a conversation or debate with someone if you are not willing to open up your sphere.
I agree.
And that's, it does not go both ways like that. It does not work that way. So if you're not willing to open yourself up for criticism and for, an exchange of understanding and perspectives, then, you can stay in your bubble and your sphere all you want. But the fact of the matter is, like, people will see you for what you are, in that sense, that you're not willing to, open up and this is the age where this is the most information that's ever been really put out there. And there's beauty in that because we have, an entire world's worth of information at our fingertips, and we're not limited to anything either, unless maybe your internet sucks, then I'm sorry.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. You got that. You don't got that that fiber internet.
You can learn a new language, you can pick up a new skill, you can do anything because we have YouTube videos and there's blogs and people's experiences and how-tos out there that will help you, do whatever you need to do, go wherever you need to go. But sometimes that sphere that we're in, our comfort zones.
And I absolutely relate on that, because that's where we're comfortable. That's the stuff that we want to read and listen about, and that's what's social. And like, that's the good thing about some of these social media platforms, because Instagram does the same method of Twitter, where you don't have to be friends with someone to follow them, But at the same time, if you're only following a certain select number of people, that is what your viewpoint is going to be. Or if that's the only
Right.
stuff that you're going to look at, even if we get into the weird territories of like if you go on Etsy and all you do is look at, I don't know, teacups all day, you know, you don't know what this other spectrum of art that exists outside on Etsy, you know, and granted, it's art, you know, it's not human beings. I mean, there is human being emotions in there because people make that stuff.
Right.
So guess
And
what? People aren't buying it, you know, it all comes back to each other. And it's just so weird how where social media has taken us.
right, and there's something to be said for both like the positives and the negatives of it. And again, I am an optimist in that sense of I want to believe that humans will and people will always choose to do good instead of bad or harm onto others. I really want to believe that. And but it's a shame that that's not always the reality. um I want to believe that most people are good. Most people have kindness in their hearts and empathy for others. But, you know, again, it is very blatantly clear. And I think it's made very clear, even through, like, especially through avenues like social media, that that is not always the case. And that's really disheartening, I think. And
Yes.
we kind of go sometimes when we take a step forward, we end up taking two steps back, and it's just this horrible dance of going back and forth as if you're in some kind of glitch. Like, shout out to EA. Just kidding, just kidding, just kidding.
Oh my god.
Just kidding.
Oh god.
But
Well, why?
sorry.
Ah,
But
God.
um but it's just kind of this horrible back and forth that we kind of experience in terms of social media. And it's a shame because I think it could be certainly really, really good and be something that people view positively. But again, that's as we've seen throughout the evolution of social media, that's not what's happening. And there's a new generation of people who are being raised in a digital world where all eyes are watching you whether you like it or not. And the issues that come with it are now being pushed onto these young minds and these impressionable young minds. And I want people to understand that I know that there are people on these platforms who do good, like on TikTok, for example, people who try to educate other people. So there's lots of doctors on there. That's wonderful. There's a lot of experts in certain fields trying to educate other people, and that's wonderful. But again, the execution of these social media sites is that they're not they're not thinking of how their product is going to be used. And they're not thinking of the impact.
Yeah.
They have a specific intention in mind, and people again will take that however they see fit. But again, it creates a slew of problems that we just continues to perpetuate itself. And
And the only way that we can really solve those problems is, you said it already, and I think it's a great way to kind of close out the show here, Jules, is that dance of going back and forth between, trying to solve something, but it's going to end up creating new issues. But I I think the big thing with all of this is that we have to continue to, when we have shows like this and we have these conversations, is that we as human beings need to take this seriously and then try to actually execute on that. And the thing is, we're going to make mistakes, and that's
right.
okay. But the thing is, we have to know what those mistakes are and then try to find new ways to help fix those mistakes. And it's just taking the step to do so. It's the action of not doing anything at all. That's when things get messy. That's when we have to have these deeper conversations about the impact of what social media has done over time, because there were definitely times where that dance stopped and a lot of the negative spin on everything just kind of went downhill. But then people were like, hey, we're tired of this crap. We want to have a more positive experience on the platform. Let's do something about it. And then they try to do something to bring it back up. And then sometimes those people are going to make mistakes. And then it's not only them learning from their mistake, it's also others learning from that as well. And I'm going to put my teacher hat on, okay? Always learn. Learn every day. Learn something new every single day, whether it's about yourself, the world, your friends, your family, your loved ones, your dog, your cat, whatever pet you have, possibly your shoe. I don't know what you're going to learn from your shoe. Maybe it's got a hole in it. But you always got to be constantly learning from when you make mistakes. And I think as long as we do that, we're still going to have topics about social media, you know. We'll probably end up talking again about it on the show at some point in the future. But hopefully next time that we talk about it, it's because of a different issue. You know, like maybe we've tried to remedy a lot of the stuff that we've talked about today, but you know, there's going to be new things that appear. And instead of talking about the same stuff over and over again, because as Jules knows, I love it when people complain about the same things over and over and over again. It's a little inside joke for things. But you know, that way we can actually have new and interesting ideas and perspectives brought to this table. There we go. That's a way to close out the show right there. What do you think, Jules? Did I nail it?
That was amazing.
That was good. Did I do good?
You did great.
Oh my God. I feel like a pro. But it's not just because of me. Jules, I just want to say thank you for coming on the show today. You brought a very interesting topic, and I always love it that when we can sit and talk about, you know, these deep topics that aren't just us being nerds and talk about our top 10 favorite snacks or board games or whatever the hell. I really enjoy having these more serious discussions, especially when we can bring levity to it, when we get to make jokes about 5-layer burritos and stuff like that.
You gotta have a burrito emote for me now. You have to, in honor of this podcast.
No, I'm not eating burritos. I hate beans. I hate beans.
You have to make a burrito emote.
Oh, okay. I could do that. That's something I can do.
I would love it.
I can design that.
In honor of me. Oh,
all right. The burrito. What I will do for this podcast, and whoever watches this, or if you watch this on YouTube, the thumbnail for this podcast will have a burrito as the picture icon for the show. I will find it. I'll do it. I'll even make it. I'll actually say this. I'll even make another step. I will make this icon. Get my old vector imaging skills back on the table. So
there you go.
And if I don't do it, someone in the comments is going to be like, "You suck." I'll be like, "I do," and I'm okay with it.
Luke, I'm doing you a favor. So.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. Jules, is there anything? I don't know if there's anything you have to plug or anything.
No.
No, nothing you want to plug?
Just be. Really, the message that I have is just please continue to be empathetic and kind and understanding to others, because you have no idea what other people are going. It's just, you know, either one, mind your own business, or two, just be nice. Like, it's not that hard.
Yeah, tell people at the end of all my streams and a lot of the stuff that I do, be excellent to each other.
Thanks for having me.
I just want to say you're very welcome, Jules. And until then, everybody, I hope you enjoy listening to us talk about 5-layer bean burritos and social media. And until next time, I hope you enjoy the unique perspective and idea that we brought to your table. We'll see you folks on the next episode. And that's it.
Craig, leave.
All right, Greg.